You've probably seen all of these people online making money flipping used clothes. Maybe you've watched thrift haul videos where somebody finds a pair of shoes worth $100, a jacket worth $200, or some crazy rare item that sells for hundreds or thousands of dollars. And then you walk into your local thrift store and think, but I don't have any of that. I used to think the exact same thing. Well, my name is LeeMeier, and since those early days of skepticism, I've since made well over 100,000 in net profit flipping used clothes online, have paid off a house doing this, and now I get to help other people learn the ropes of doing this. But when I first started, I didn't have access to luxury brands. I wasn't finding designer handbags every time I walked into a thrift store. Never, actually. What changed? Wasn't the thrift stores. What changed was learning how to spot value, learning what buyers are actually looking for, learning the materials, styles, labels, and sometimes the small details that can separate an ordinary item from one that's worth picking up. And today I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. We'll look at a pair of shoes worth over $100, a jacket that's going for over $100, and a sleeper item in a section that most people would never even check out that's going to bring in around $75. Plus several other pieces that most shoppers walk right past without realizing what they're worth. And that's exactly what I'm going to be showing you today. We're going to be going section by section through the thrift store. We're going to look at real items, real examples, and the clues that I use to quickly decide whether something is worth buying for resale. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which sections to prioritize, what to look for in each one, and how to walk into any thrift store, see opportunities, and leave with as much as $200 to $500 net profit in your cart. Let's head inside. The first thing I do whenever I enter any new section of the thrift store, I'm quickly scanning for anything that stands out. I'm looking for prints that jump out at me, and I'm also looking for any solid brands. And the first section that we're heading to is women's shoes. I spot these shiny gold penny loafers, pick them up, and I see that they're from the brand Fry, and they're like in almost perfect condition. This is a really good example of an item where even though it's marked up in the thrift store, it's worth paying up for based on the total amount of money I'll make on these, not just the ROI. Based on comparable sales, I'm pretty confident that I could easily 3 to 4x my investment in these. And I'm definitely looking for quality of construction and materials. Anything that's leather, I'm gonna pick up and check out. And don't forget about the bottom and the top shelf. Those are the ones that are most commonly missed. And I'm also scanning for anything that jumps out at me as a comfort shoe. These are some of the most overlooked shoe styles, and they're a good bread and butter item that sells for a decent amount as well as sells quickly. And this is definitely a comfort brand to know and source. It does sell well. And one thing that you'll want to pay attention to, especially with comfort shoes, is the words that they use. These are part of the marketing of these shoes. Things like biomechanical footwear, those types of words usually indicate extra value. And anything that you see that's new with tags, definitely worth checking out. These are from Torrid and they are a very big size. That's another thing to pay attention to when you're sourcing is bigger sizes do sell better and sell for more money. The comps on these are looking pretty good. Another pair of comfort sandals here, these will be a quick sell. These are from the brand OrthoFeet, and there is a pretty good following for these shoes. And I've been noticing that a lot of thrift stores have things that are just thrown in bins, like there's just not enough room on the shelf. And this is where you can find some good items that people just haven't dug through. Just like these engineer boots. I could tell immediately that they're leather. They have a deep stamp there in the bottom. That's the first indication before I ever even read the brand that this is a pair of quality leather boots. These were marked at $25, but I took a gamble on these based on comps. I also have a few dollars of points from spending money from a previous trip, so that'll help lower the price a little bit. They're from a brand that's called Vintage Foundry, and it looks like they're selling for $75 to $80 for similar styles, maybe a little bit more than that if I'm lucky. In a single Timberland boot, maybe I can find the match. And I ended up finding that other pair at the top bin. Sorry for the view. Hashtag short people problems. I could barely reach them, but those will make a really good flip. I was surprised they were only marked up to $12.99 because another thrift store in my area had similar shoes from Timberland priced at $30. And these are in like new condition, so I'm very hopeful for the amount that I'll be able to get for these. Now the shoe section is one where I usually spend the most money, and I find that even in cases where prices are marked up a bit, there's still quite a bit of profit margin compared to what they're selling for online. Basically, it's kind of a spend more, to make more kind of thing. And one of the things that I've also found is that shoes usually have one of the highest sell-through rates out of all the different clothing categories, meaning that they sell fast. Overall, the women's shoe section has quite a bit of value in it, a lot of selection to pick from, but it's a little bit harder to sort through just because of the sheer number of pairs. Next up, accessories, specifically bags and handbags. These types of items can have some of the highest ROIs as well as sell quickly. Again, here I'm looking for anything that stands out, that's just different, or that has a higher quality. So I'm always looking for those quality materials. You can tell pretty easily which ones are leather and which ones are not just by touching. And so I did spot 2 men's Eddie Bauer messenger bags. One was fabric, but the other was leather, so we're getting that. Overall, these bag and accessory sections typically have moderate to high value. Selection tends to be a little bit on the lower side as far as the quantity of items goes, but that does make it a little bit easier to get through them quickly. The next section is women's dresses, and this can be an area where a lot of profit is hiding. And I always start with the biggest sizes because they're almost always worth more. And I'm looking for current styles for trends, and for details that just stand out. I guess we're starting to get tired here. And I'm definitely looking for fabrics that just feel quality, as well as for vintage items. This one is from Lane Bryant, and people generally pay more for these layering types of pieces. It's not a dress, but I did find it in the dress section. And that last dress I found was from Torrid. And those are some of my favorite bread and butter brands when it comes to women's plus size. And you'll definitely want to think about aesthetics or looks that people are after. And this is a really good example of an aesthetic that is trending hard, the whimsy goth look. This is a black velvet dress with huge bell sleeves. Definitely use the keywords of witchy and whimsy goth with items like this. In fact, I'm always looking for velvet, especially black velvet, because these are one of the things that shoppers are really paying up for right now, even for unknown or lower value brands. And another good whimsy goth item, this one has burnout velvet as well as bell sleeves. If you'd love to have these types of keywords at your listing station so you're not having to constantly try to remember them, then you're gonna love my style keywords that sell poster. I'll link that on the screen as well as below this video. So that pretty much wraps up the women's dresses as far as the bigger sizes. The smaller sizes, I'll generally just run through those super quickly to see if anything stands out. And I do happen to see one that has a unique texture to it, and it is from the brand Cachet. This is a really good throwback brand that's selling pretty well, and it's actually at a 50% markdown today. Overall, for the dress section, the value here does tend to be a little bit lower. On the flip side, there's usually a lot of dresses to pick from. Because of that, it can take a little bit more time to get through this section. We'll head to the women's tops next. Now, sections like these where there's not usually a lot of profit, I'll quickly scan through these and basically just look for discounted tags. But I'm definitely keeping my eye out for fabrics and materials, aesthetics or different looks that I know that are trending, as well as things like layering pieces because those generally sell for a little bit more money. I also like to look for duplicates where more than one of the same item was donated. That happens more often than you think, and it can sometimes make a lower value item worth picking up because, for example, you would only have to create one listing to sell 3 items. And on this trip, I did happen to come across a size 5X hoodie. Love finding those bigger sizes. And a little ways down the aisle, 2 more of the exact same thing. So this is the perfect example where it's a lower value item, but because I can pick up 3 of them, it makes it worth it. And real quick, if you're watching this and thinking, okay, I kind of get this, but I'm not totally confident that I spot these kinds of things on my own, that's exactly where most people get stuck. Because it's one thing to see it in a video, and it's another thing to walk into a store and actually know what to pick up. And that's why I created the Empowered Reseller. Every month inside, we go deep into a specific category or style, so you're not guessing what's worth picking up. We cover what to look for, what actually sells, what to avoid, and the exact keywords that are getting these items found. And you're not doing this alone. You can ask questions, get feedback, and help when you're unsure about something. So instead of second guessing every item, you actually have a system and support behind what you're doing. I'll link it below if you want to check it out. But for now, let's keep going because this next one is a really good example of what I mean. And the other thing that I'm looking for in every single section that I visit is, of course, vintage tags. Anything that looks a little bit older, you can pretty easily recognize just looking at the tag alone. If it's got the words "Made in the USA," you can almost guarantee that it is a vintage item. With that said, though, there's lots and lots of vintage items that are not made in the USA, but that are still valuable. I was able to pick up a handful of items in the women's tops section that should make me around $100 after seller fees, cost of goods, and expenses. Overall, in this section, the value does tend to be a little bit lower, but there's tons and tons of inventory to choose from, so it can take a little bit of time to get through this section. And one of my favorite sections, women's bras. Now, these niche sections can have a lot of hidden profit. Now, with bras, there's certain things that I'm looking for. Yes, those bigger sizes, but also certain brands. Yes, everybody knows Victoria's Secret, including the thrift stores, and they usually mark those up. But this is a really good section where you can usually snag valuable brands that they don't recognize and therefore they don't mark up. And it looks like somebody is about to go to sleep in the store. And this one is a Victoria's Secret, but it's actually not marked up too much and it is 50% off. So we'll go ahead and get that. And this is one of those brands that they don't usually mark up. These are super simple to spot. There's lots of different brands that have this same look. This one happens to be a Lomi, but there's Fantasy and there's other brands. The easiest way to spot these is with that vertical tag on the wing. They put their tags in a different place than almost every other brand. And the comps on these are pretty good. It's something that I don't have to look up, but here's a look at recent sales if you're wondering. Now that one was a G cup, and that's something that you'll want to pay attention to. Bigger bands as well as bigger cup sizes almost always sell for more money. And that's the thing, once you've been doing this for a while, you shouldn't have to look up every item. I can pretty easily go in now, even without my phone, and feel confident knowing how much I can get for items and how much I'm gonna price them for. Another underrated brand that a lot of resellers miss, this is actually a plus size brand called Cacique, and this is the Intimates line from Lane Bryant. I've had really good luck with selling bras from this brand, and especially when I come across a bra with a style like this. It's got the lace up front, metallic details. People are after those kinds of things. And just a little bit down the row, I actually come across another bra, same exact style, also from Cacique, and I do find that like items oftentimes get donated together, so definitely keep your eye out. If you see one, there's a good chance there's more there. Now in the bra section, I got probably more than normal on a single trip, but I love them because they're super simple to photograph and list. Shipping is usually pretty inexpensive for these because they're light, and I rarely, if ever, get returns. Overall, in the bra section, there's usually quite a bit to be able to pick from. It's pretty easy to spot valuable items. However, the profit potential here is a little bit on the lower end, usually averaging around 20 bucks. And right next to the bras, there's actually a super tiny section of sleepwear, and I spot this vintage rainbow seersucker nightgown. It's not a brand that you would immediately go, this is valuable, but I know from selling these in the past that these can be very valuable items, especially given that rainbow design as well as those pin tucks. It's comping out around $75, but this is really a section where it can be hit or miss. Luckily, the section is pretty small, so it makes it super quick to get through, and the profit potential is actually pretty high in this section. And on to men's pants and jeans. What I'm looking for here are any lesser known brands that they're not gonna be so quick to recognize. And this is a pair of pants. These are a workwear fire rated pair of pants, and they're from the brand Workrite. On the back of these pants, you're gonna see the fire rating and some different numbers associated with that. That's a really quick way to be able to identify those as a fire rated pair of pants. The comps on these are coming in at around $25 to $50 depending on the size, and these are a bigger size, so they should go towards that higher end. Also in this section, I come across another maybe lesser known brand, and this is from Prana. And I find that the Prana men's items sell really well. This actually sold before I was able to get this video edited. It was not marked up, and it sold for $25 plus shipping within just a few minutes of getting it listed. I'll head around to the other side of the pants and jeans. And with men's items, I don't worry so much about sourcing smaller sizes. With men's items, there's just less of them out there. It's not as saturated. So even the smaller sizes will still sell. And just a smidge of the way down the aisle, I come across these Adriano Goldschmied, is that how you say it? Pair of jeans. These are not marked up, surprisingly. So these are gonna be a for sure grab. They're a really nice wash, really good condition, and it should be an easy 35 to 40 bucks. In these sections, I'm always on the lookout for workwear style pants. And so this is a workwear style pant, unfortunately from a brand that doesn't end up holding its resale value very well. But a lot of times, keeping your eye out for those more sturdy fabrics, things like cargo pockets, hammer loops, those types of items can do really well. Overall, for the men's pants and jeans, there usually tends to be a pretty good quantity that's available and moderate value when it comes to pricing potential, as well as moderate effort that it takes to sort through these items. A quick wipe of the chocolate off the face and we'll head over to the other side of the aisle where there's long sleeve tops. And what this is a brand that I had never come across before, but I could tell immediately that it could be a valuable item just based off of the thickness of the fabric, the quality, as well as the branding, the tag. It had an interesting flag made out of maybe rubber on the sleeve. And so that was just an indication that that could be valuable. And once I looked up comps on that, it's pretty consistently selling for $15 to $30, and this is a bigger size. So again, I expect that would go towards the higher end. While that last item was a button-up shirt, we actually haven't even made it over to the button-up section. But in the general men's long sleeve shirts, there's usually a little bit less quantity. The value does tend to be a little bit on the lower side, and it does take a little bit more effort to go through these. And the men's jacket section. It's a jacket that's tin cloth or waxed canvas. It's super waterproof. If you haven't felt one of these before, you'll know exactly what it is when you feel it. Now, this brand in particular doesn't hold its resale value very well. It's also priced pretty high, but I have come across several of these in thrift stores that are from a brand that's called Outback Trading. I've also come across other brands that hold their resale value well. And so if you do come across this type of fabric, it's definitely one where you're gonna wanna look up comps. Now with this section, the quantity will depend on the time of year. And as of the time that I'm filming this, there's not a whole lot here. But it is a section where there can be high value items hidden, so it's definitely always worth taking a peek. They've got a whole nother aisle of men's button-ups, and this is where things really start to heat up. There's a lot in here. This is a BKE button-up long sleeve shirt with that thick stitch. That is a great style. And I find that this brand, especially for their men's items and especially their button-up shirts and also their jeans, tend to perform pretty well. People really like these. Shoppers are loyal and they're looking for these items. And a little ways down the aisle, yet another BKE shirt in a similar style, except this one is a snap closure. I'm not sure if she approves. What do you think? Now, I know that trendy items can be great, but bills are usually paid by the basics. They're paid by things like workwear, larger sizes, quality materials, things like outdoor clothing and golf apparel. These categories aren't always exciting, but they're often the items that sell consistently month in and month out, year after year. And this shirt caught my eye because it does have a USA logo on it and the flag there. It's from a brand that I'm not super familiar with called Mizzen plus Main or Mizzen and Main. And these look like they're comping out pretty consistently from about $15 on the low end to about $40 on the upper end. And here's another one of those Mizzen and Main men's button-up shirts. Remember, if you find one, there's a really good chance that you'll find another one that was probably donated at the same time by the same person. Should be another easy $25-ish sale. Definitely something to be dancing about. And it's kind of one thing after another in this aisle. This is a Columbia long sleeve shirt. Now, I'm not super crazy about the Columbia brand, but I have found that these style of shirts do really well. This is a super lightweight. A really good keyword for this is fishing. This is their titanium line. It does also have breathable vents there on the back. It does have a little bit of a mesh fabric going on here, but this should make an easy $20 to $25 flip for this item, especially because of that color. It's a little less common out there. Now, one reason that I spend so much time in men's sections is because of competition. A lot of resellers naturally gravitate towards women's clothes because there's simply more of it. But that also means that women's resale can be more saturated. Just check out any platform. But the men's sections are what actually get overlooked. The selection's smaller, but so is the competition. And that's one of the reasons that I am able to consistently find inventory in these sections that I know that they're gonna sell. Overall, the section has a fair amount of quantity, value is moderate, and it's fairly easy to find valuable items. The short sleeve men's section, I pretty much just go through super quickly. Short sleeve in general will usually sell for quite a bit less than long sleeve, so I don't normally spend too much time. If I've got only a limited amount of time, I'll just limit myself to those long sleeve and then completely skip this section. Overall, for this section, there's usually quite a bit to have to sift through and the value just isn't here. The men's short section, however, is another story. And this is one that is very quickly to get through. I usually skip past all of just like the elastic waist athletic shorts and go for more flat front style shorts. And so I am on this trip able to pick up a couple of pairs of large size Under Armour golf style shorts is what I'm gonna label them as in the title. One pair is a printed kind of geometric design on a black background, and another is this green pair. Both larger sizes, and these both should sell for an easy 20 bucks. Overall for this section, the value is on the lower to moderate end, but it is fairly easy to source items, given at least in my area, there's usually not a lot of selection. It may be different depending on where you live. And before heading over to the other side of pants, I noticed that they do have some shoes thrown on top of the rack in not the usual shoe place. And so I come across these Tray Torn, and I could totally be butchering the name of that brand. They can do pretty well, but unfortunately these are marked up, so it's going to be a no today. I usually find that the men's shoe section has a much smaller quantity than the women's shoes, and it's rare that I come across a valuable item. They're usually all pretty worn. However, they're easy enough to quickly look through just in case something is hiding there. All right, so one of those surefire sections is the swimsuit section. Now that might be gross to a lot of people to wear a used swimsuit, and that might be why this is such a good section to go and check out. It may not turn over as quickly as some of the other sections, and there can be some really good profit hiding here. And on this trip, it's pretty quick section to get through, but on this trip, I was able to find this really cute swimsuit from Torrid. So we're gonna go ahead and get that. It's not even marked up at all. The swimwear sections are super easy to get through. There's usually not a lot of quantity there, but I can almost always grab a valuable piece or two pretty quickly. Now, most trips, I do find at least one item like the one that I'm gonna show you, but it's the bread and butter pieces that you've seen throughout this video that keep the business moving and money coming in. But these stronger finds, they're fun, and they're often what pays for the entire sourcing trip. And this next item is exactly why I always end up checking out just one more rack, even when I really need to leave. Okay, so I kind of screwed up and shut off my camera before heading to the women's jacket section. But this one jumped out at me, and it's gonna cover the entire trip. This is a Y2K era jacket. It's from a brand that I'd never heard of, but because of the style of it, the frame, the plaid, the embroidery, this has got a lot of fun details there. Those buttons. This is one that immediately grabbed my attention. And because of that, I looked up comps on this brand. Like I said, I've never seen this brand before, hadn't heard of it. It looks like they're pretty consistently going for anywhere from $45 up to one here that sold for $107. And I did go and verify this sale in Terapeak, and it did sell for that full asking price of $107. This is another one of those sections that doesn't usually have a huge quantity to sift through, making it pretty easy to be able to spot profitable items. And the profit potential here can be high. Now, one section that I don't spend a lot of time in is kids' clothes. Now, that's not because there isn't money here. There absolutely can be, but the challenge is that there is usually a lot of other inventory to sort through that's not worth anything. So you end up spending quite a bit of time hunting for a relatively small number of valuable pieces. If I've got more time on my hands, I'll definitely take a look, and I'll look for winter items like coats, jackets, or ski suits, shoes, formal wear, as well as vintage pieces. But if I'm trying to maximize my profit per hour and I only have 20 minutes or so in the store, this usually isn't one of the sections that I'm hitting up. For me, there's simply other sections that are gonna produce bigger results with less work. Overall, for the kid and baby sections, there's a ton of quantity available, but most of it's not valuable at all. However, there can be hidden or rare items that are highly valuable. It just depends if you've got the time to look through this section or not. After going through all these different sections, if I only had 20 minutes in a thrift store, these are the 5 places I'd check first. Number 1, women's shoes. Number 2, men's jackets. 3, women's jackets. Number 4, the plus size. And number 5, bras. But these are the sections that consistently give me the best combination of profit potential, inventory availability, and speed. And really, that's a bigger lesson here. It's not to memorize thousands of brands, but it's to learn how to recognize value. When you understand materials, styles, construction details, labels, and the signals that buyers are searching for, you stop relying on luck. And you spend less time wandering the store, less time looking up every single item, and more time finding inventory that's actually worth flipping. That's the skill that ultimately helps you source faster, make better decisions, and build a more profitable reselling business. And if you want to learn more about style-based sourcing, then click on this next video. I'll show you the exact keywords and styles that buyers are shopping for right now. Just click here, and I'll see you there.